All right, good evening, everybody. At 6 o'clock, we're going to get started. Before we begin, I'm going to start with an introduction. This is the second meeting of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. We met previously at the beginning of the month, or at the end of December. We're going to start now with a little bit of information on procedures for public participation. At the end of the meeting, there will be 3 minutes for every member of the community who lives in Daniel Boone Area School District to comment. That's how we're going to be running this meeting. Because of the crowd, we can't have a dialogue back and forth. We will now, everybody please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now do a roll call. Rich Martino.
Here.
Connor Kurtz here. Monica. Carol Bites.
Here.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, moving on to old business. We are going to be discussing, first up, the update on Common Core implementation. I know modified block scheduling is listed first. We're going to be talking about Common Core, and this is going to be on every agenda. We would like to know what is going on in the district in terms of the implementation, just so the board is aware. We trust that the administration is doing what they need to be doing, but it's important for the board to be kept in the loop. So, Mrs. Porsche, are you prepared to present?
I am prepared.
Great.
Just looking for my notes. Just for the new board members that are sitting here, not including yourself, Connor, but Common Core was adopted back in July 2010 when Anne-Marie Traynor was the assistant to the superintendent, and I believe that she brought some of this information to the board at that time, or, I can't really speak to what she did or did not bring. But officially, the governor has decided not to institute a lot of the things within Pennsylvania until the beginning of 2013 of this school year, okay? So, but because we knew Common Core was coming, preparation had to immediately take place, and that was looking at our curriculum the way that is current and making sure that we were filling in any gaps with regards to the PA Common Core and the standards that were coming, because it's called PA Core Standards now, and reviewing at the elementary level. So therefore, that's why there were committees, and I don't want to say that they're committees, but there were groups of teachers from each grade level that were working together under her supervision in drafting up curriculum K to 5, and then we went from 6 to 8 as well, making sure that we were going to be ready to begin instruction so that we were prepared to for the test, because the Common Core or PA Core standards are directly aligned to the Keystone and to the PSSA testing. So with regards to one of the questions that you had was, what can we opt out of? Nothing. This is Chapter 4. Chapter 4 was adopted, and it's changing. They're kind of tweaking it constantly. But as of next year, for the 14-15 school year, there will be new tests in place that are going to be based upon the core standards. Okay, so I know that there was a review of the curriculum. It's in draft form. Our job this year is to finish to make sure those drafts are not drafts and we adopt them, and that this is what we're impressing upon our teachers, that this is the new focus on teaching. I do know that each of my principals at each level, they've been having meetings with their staff, making sure that they know what the new focus is. And it's really not a huge change in curriculum. It's a change in teaching. And it's a change in the style of teaching, because the core standards want to make students more ready for college or for real life. And they want what's being instructed to be more relevant. They've also removed the writing piece as a separate test, and it's part of what they're calling ELA now, in grades 3 through 8. So, that's just a bit of a brief overview. I know that I gave you a lot of information, but we're on top of it so that when testing does take place, and what was postponed by Governor Corbett was when the new testing was going to take place. It was supposed to be taking place this school year. It did not. He pushed it back a year.
Okay, I know there was a lot of confusion over what had been implemented, what had not.
Right. And
Okay.
the PA Common Core standards is not dictating a change in textbooks. Okay, it's dictating what might have been taught at 7th grade now has to be taught at 6th grade. What's been taught, that some materials might have to be taught at a younger age, because of the different spiral effect. They're trying to teach to mastery, is what the focus is.
Okay.
Mrs. Torres, let me ask you a question. Before I do, let me thank everybody for coming. I mean, and we don't get this much turnout at a school board meeting, so we're glad you're here. Thank you. You said we can't opt out of anything, but if I heard you correctly the other day when we had a brief discussion on this, there was a survey for the students.
I'm sorry.
That I think is very intrusive, and I thought you said we did not have to do that?
We had to present it, but if the student and the parents decide not to take it, they don't have to take it.
But is it presented to the parents that way, that their child does not have to take it?
The surveys that we're talking about that Tom, that were given to the students with regard, it had a lot of different questions. It was in the fall. Karen Long had been working with it.
It had a lot of personal
Pennsylvania area
information
youth.
asked about family matters.
And I think you were,
There was a letter that was sent home to the parents in regards to that.
but then I believe at the high school there was a survey.
The middle school got one.
Okay,
That's correct.
the middle school did get one.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the letter was that came with it. Dr. Otto more or less was working with Mrs. Long and said, disperse it and go
Because
from
I
there.
saw that survey, Mrs. Torsia, and my first thought was it's none of their business what they're asking.
That was not part of Common Core, though.
I
That
believe
was-
that's a PD initiative,
Right.
that it was something else that they were putting out. And
It
I
was
don't know
optional.
I don't know what the exact link was, but that was not something that we had to sit students down and force them to take it. If they chose not to take it, they did not have to participate, and we were not going to be penalized in any way.
Is there some data, some worthiness that you all gleaned from having that, or was that
I don't
strictly
believe
for
that we got
state
any information
use?
back as a result of it.
Do you know how many students participated in the survey?
I do not, no. Again, I did not get any
Okay.
information back from the state with regards to it.
Was this done during the school day, or was this sent home?
I'm not 100% sure, because that was something that I had delegated to Mrs. Long.
Well,
Okay.
my question for the future would be, you're saying the student or the parent can opt out. Can the school opt out?
I don't believe that we could, because that's why Dr. Otto had told Mrs. Long to push it out. But I don't know the exact answer, because I didn't personally have any, I wasn't touching that survey, I wasn't reading it, I wasn't reviewing that survey. That was something that was being done between.
I would just like to know
Yeah.
before it comes up again, because if you read that, I did not like the questions at all.
Can the committee get a copy of the letter that was sent out to our
I
parents?
can
at all
certainly
the
check
grade
and
levels?
see if we have any copies of the survey or the parent, or the letter.
That'd be great. That was a good question. All right. Do we have any other questions from the committee on Common Core implementation for this month? All right. Seeing none. Something that we would like to receive updates on every meeting, if possible. Just what has changed in the past month. I know it is a sizable transition, so we would like to just be kept in the loop.
I can't tell you that there's going to be a whole lot of change. Once we have our curriculum aligned, and teachers are getting gradual in-service during team meetings at the elementary level. I know Mr. Hurley can speak to what he's doing at the middle, and Mr. Henkel can speak at the high school. It's really making sure that the focus is based on what Chapter 4 is requiring schools to do.
Yeah, and we'd like to know that as well. Even if there's not too much to report, it could be just as simple as there have been no updates. We just want to keep it on there so we don't forget.
I think the concern is, I don't think the board was aware it had gone as far as it had. I mean, I sat in this room as a member of the public, and the subject of Common Core came up, and some teachers in the audience said, "Oh yeah, we've been working on that for 2 years." But I don't think
Since
the board.
2010.
Yeah, and I don't think the board was as
We're
aware
going
as
to
they
close
should
that
have been.
loop.
And,
So we're
and I
left in
can't
the loop.
speak to what the person, I started my position in 2012. So I wasn't a part of the curriculum committee meetings.
I mean, I'm not blaming anybody,
No,
but
I'm
I'm
just
saying that's the
speaking.
concern.
I
is we
can't
just-
say what was shared or wasn't shared, so.
As far as monthly updates, would it be realistic to hear what our teachers are commenting about it? From, good, bad, ugly, just comments? Can we get some filtering?
Sure.
Well, I mean,
No,
not
no
tonight.
specifics.
But
No, I mean, as part of
in
our monthly
general.
updates.
It's kind of, what people don't understand is that the Department of Education has been changing the way that curriculum, and there might be somebody in the audience that's been teaching in education much longer than I, Tom, that they've been changing the way that curriculum is being presented since I started as an educator in the 90s. And if somebody wants to refresh my memory and go back to the 80s, what was it called? What were we using? For what chapter 4 was following, they were, I can't even remember. But it's a constant turnover with what the Department of Education is doing as they're evaluating chapter 4 and saying what schools have to do. So you cannot like it, but you're still going to have to do it,
Yeah.
because this is tied to everything else that PD is pushing forward. The new teacher evaluation tool, school performance profile, all of that is tied to this, because
Well, I think we just want to be on the cusp of that. If our teachers need something, we don't want to wait until it's too late to get it. What are they saying as they implement this? Because this is a drastic rewrite, and it's tied to national standards. It's the first time this in and of itself has ever been attempted.
well, that
We would just like to know what, our people that
that's
are
a debate,
using it.
whether or not it's tied to, I mean, it's deriving from national standards, but we're not going that route. That's why they're calling it PA core standards.
It's arguable, I'll give you that. But it is a brand new initiative in comparison to the way the other rewrites in Pennsylvania education codes, to my understanding. And I know we can't do anything about it, but personally, I'd like to know how our teacher partners are doing with implementing it. Who needs books? Who needs what? What do we need to subscribe to something? I'm just asking, monthly updates, if we can just hear some comments. I don't even need names.
Got it on my notes.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, great. And then in terms of just interacting with the community and keeping the community apprised of what's going on, are there letters sent home to parents? Is there anything on the website? Just because I know it is a politically charged issue in a lot of ways, and any way that we could help reassure parents of what's actually happening in our schools, which doesn't seem to be too drastic from what I hear. Any way we could communicate with them?
It's really a shift in how we're teaching opposed to what we're teaching. And there shouldn't have to be a lot of texts that have to be replaced as a result, because texts do not drive curriculum. The curriculum drives what texts we may need to use as a resource. But when we're writing curriculum, and it's not because we've gotten a text in mind first. We're writing the curriculum based upon those standards. So
Okay.
if there are needs for more supplemental materials, then certainly they do bring that to me each year during the budget process. So I will bring that to the board as well.
Great, thank you. Is there any other comment? No. All right, great. Then we're going to go to the modified block schedule at DBHS, and for the sake of the public and the new members of the committee, this is something that began to be looked at under the previous committee, and it was never really tied up, and we'd like to do that if possible tonight and take a recommendation to the board. And I've tried to, I think the administration is aware of kind of where we're going with this, and we asked them to investigate a little bit and come forward with a recommendation. Mrs. Torsch, are you prepared to address this, or Mr. Hankel, whoever you'd like to hand it over to?
The block scheduling came up at a separate curriculum instruction meeting. We had a board member ask us to look into it. We looked into it. We came up with a modified schedule because we didn't want to see students going from year to year with starting math in the fall and not having math again for another fall. So that's why the modified block was being proposed. It is not block scheduled on a whole, in my experience from the district that I worked in and the district to which my children attend, is not a staff reduction move. It's staff intensive. So you don't lose staff by going to modified block. What you gain is instructional time with students, which does have benefits, but it also has some drawbacks with regards to whatever course offerings you might be having. I had an in-depth conversation with the principal in the Conrad Weiser School District with regards to, their AP courses in the fall are great. They get all of their curriculum in. They're struggling a little bit come the spring because the AP test is coming before the classes are over, and they don't always have all the material. So it is not the recommendation of the administration to change from the traditional schedule that we currently have. We were doing as we were asked to do, and that was to look into block and modified
And thank
block.
you. We're glad you looked into it because it could have had some positive ramifications. But we did want to get some clear direction for the administration as to what direction you'd like to move, and you would not like to make the transition, is what you're
At
saying.
this point, I'm speaking to Mr. Henkel and his administrative team. It's not our recommendation. If we thought that it would help in solving our budgetary problems in some way, then we would do what we needed to do at the direction of the board and support the board, but it's not going to reduce anything, and the change is going to be drastic, and quite honestly, between now and next September, there's not enough time to provide staff development for our staff to be able to be fully equipped to come in and to teach to the larger amount of time.
Okay.
I was one of the people that said that I haven't heard what block scheduling would do for us. Wait, you didn't hear my question. You can't answer it before I ask it. But I think we need to slow down a little bit. I don't know that we need to make any kind of decision tonight. Last night, apparently, rumors ran rampant through the community about what tonight's meeting was about. And I got home from a township meeting, and I went on my email, and there was an email from a resident asking if the agenda was posted for the committee meeting. And apparently we don't post committee meeting agendas. Regardless, I got the agenda and I emailed it to the person, or I sent them a Facebook message with it, and they posted it on Facebook. And there were quite a few comments posted under the agenda about they'd like to make tonight's meeting, they couldn't make tonight's meeting, but they had seen on the agenda about block scheduling, and there were a lot of positive comments from residents who apparently went to school in block scheduling. And I'd like to hear more from them what's so positive about it before we decide not to do it.
And I can honestly tell you there's great argument for both sides. As a teacher of special education, I loved teaching in the block because I had students they could go to their class for a certain amount of time, and then I could pull them out and I could bring it to their level and work with them one-on-one, and it gave me a great amount of time to work with them. But there's argument on the other side as well, because if you stick with a true block, and I'm not as versed in modified block, I'm 4x4 block experience, is that you have 4 classes, which that's it for one semester. And if you have math from September to January, and you don't choose to take another math next, if you're not a math student and you're just taking the, 4 requirements that you have to do to graduate, you're not taking more. And so if you took Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 and whatever the next course is, you're not getting it again.
No, I've heard that.
But they don't believe that all of the subjects build upon each other. So that was the other argument that, but when you're taking a foreign language, obviously it's better to be, well versed in it.
All I'm saying is I think, and it doesn't have to be done to be implemented this coming September.
Right.
It could be the following September. I just wouldn't write it off yet. I had brunch today with Walt Shaheen, who chaired this committee last year. And he says the high school he had attended was a run-of-the-mill high school, and after they went to block scheduling is now ranked as one of the top 150 in the country. And I don't know if block scheduling did that. He feels it did. Well, you're saying no, but I don't know is all I'm saying.
Well, all I know is there is no research that will either support nor not support whether it's successful or not successful. There's no research out there.
And I said that to him, that I'm sure we could find schools that went to block scheduling, their test scores went down.
Correct.
But what I'm saying, Mr. Henkel, is that on Facebook last night, the comments there were no negative comments about block scheduling. It was all people who claimed they had gone to school in block scheduling and they loved it.
And they have to decide which, because they look at block as a different way. Do they go 4x4, or do they go modified?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I want to talk to them.
Modified, I can see. 4x4 is a tougher, but then there's school districts such as Wise or such as Twin Valley, you go to those teachers, half the staff loves it, half the staff can't.
But you're making an argument for or against, and all I'm saying is I want to talk to these people.
That's fine.
The only argument I could make is that if the board would want to go in that direction, when schools had transitioned to that type of scheduling, they did it, they took almost 2 years to develop, to provide their teachers the proper staff development and to get them to come on board, because if you're going to just push it at them, you're not going to have the best results.
Well, if you heard me, I just said we don't have to do it for this September. I don't want to just shelve it.
Okay. Seeing the direction of the committee, it looks like we won't be making a recommendation tonight, but it is something we can continue to talk about and discuss in the community. It'll remain on the agenda until we come up with a recommendation to issue to the board. Are there any other comments on that? All right, great. Then next up is a discussion of the textbook approval process. Most of these items, almost all of them, were discussed at the last committee meeting, but now that we have the administration here, it would be helpful to receive some information from them. And on this issue, our board policy clearly states, and I believe Pennsylvania law requires the board to affirmative pass it has to be with at least 5 votes. They have to approve textbooks. And I don't recall seeing on any board agendas or minutes for a very long time actually doing that. So I just want to make sure we're following policy.
I can only speak to my position and what I've done, and I have not purchased any new text, new editions of anything. I have replaced books that with the same revision date. If Mr. Henkel had a shortage of however many social studies books or whatever it was that he needed, and he needed 10 more, and it's my responsibility to make sure those 10 students have books. So, yes, I purchased those, but I did not come forward for board approval,
and that's fine,
because that wasn't something that I was told needed to be done. I have not purchased any new series, and if I would need to come to the board for text adoption, I believe that the whole process would be different than how it has been in the past, because it should be a lengthy process. People should have a long time to look at text to make sure that they're the ones that they want, and it should follow a curriculum revision. If we're doing and that's one of the things that I brought up to the curriculum committee committee in October, saying that I would like to go back to a traditional review cycle of curriculum where we're reviewing all of math K-12 1 year, we're writing curriculum, we're making sure that we're aligned K-12, that we're not reteaching things, and then we're reevaluating after the curriculum's done, and we're instituting that for a year. Then we're reevaluating, are the texts that we're using at those levels, are they what we should be using?
Is that process currently underway, or is that at that point just an idea that you were floating?
Well, I was asking because that costs money. For me to be able to have curriculum writing K-12, that would mean that I would need a representative.
So you're talking about an entire
and be on
rewrite
cycle,
of all of it.
The way that most districts are. 1 year you're doing math, the next year you go to social studies, the next year you're going to science, the next year you're going to your encore groups, so that you are constantly updating your curriculum so that you're not reteaching something or rereading a book in 9th grade that you had already read in 8th grade because you didn't realize that was a part of their reading list, or just to make sure that we're making sure that we're covering what needs to be covered in 2nd grade in order to prepare the students for the 3rd grade test, because that's the first year that they're exposed to it. Making sure that they have the right material for 4th grade for science, because now they're taking the science test, and just making sure. And my experience being hired 6 years ago, that's not how curriculum was reviewed. And
how do we do it in Daniel Boone currently?
The request used to come into my office and saying that we need to look at XYZ subject and rewrite the curriculum.
Okay.
From whom?
the teacher would request it to my position because I would
So it's a
be the
bottom-up thing.
right, and instead of it being completely cyclical, which
And
I think is
Who does the curriculum rewriting?
the teachers do the curriculum rewriting. Traditionally, when I was in the Antietam School District, we would do curriculum writing at the end of June every year. Not every subject. Again, you did math, language arts, science, social studies. Encore. That was your review cycle each year. So if it was math rewriting, then I would bring in a person from each grade level so that they were working collaboratively together and being able to say, oh no, we're covering this in third grade, you shouldn't be covering this in fourth grade. We're, according to our standard, we're supposed to be meeting that here.
Is it the same teacher who requests that the committee be looked at? Is that the same teacher as the teacher doing the rewriting?
It would be whoever on those grade levels would be willing to volunteer, and it's not volunteer. I mean, they would be paid a curriculum writing stipend, but it would be whoever maybe the principal might designate as being the leader for third grade or
Okay.
Fourth
Yeah,
grade,
the reason
whatever.
I'm asking this, and I'm really glad we're having this discussion, because I think it tells the committee a lot of what is going on when it comes to curriculum. And I believe that's one of the purposes of this committee, to know, at the very least, what is going on in regard to the curriculum. How is the board involved? Do we approve the revised curriculum? Do we approve?
You do approve curriculum writing every spring.
Okay.
Every spring agenda, there is, it's listed what curriculum is going to be written and how many hours, and I believe there's like a little budget sheet that I had given you last year, and I can dig out exactly what what you voted on.
Yeah, sure,
But
great.
That's been done forever, but it's not been a K-12 initiative. It's been
Piecemeal.
specific ones, at one area.
When it comes springtime, if you could present to this committee what some of the changes are, is this like how many courses do you have on average that you're doing this for? How many curriculums are you
My
rewriting?
proposal would be that between myself and the administration, we pick the subject that needs the most attention. I don't know when the last time is that we rewrote science or social studies as a whole. I think I need their feedback as to telling me, and from the input from the teachers, and saying, we really need to look at this subject. Can we start with this subject?
But under the current operation,
Under
how
the
many?
current- How many?
How many roughly?
I might have had only 3
Okay.
subjects.
So it wouldn't be
Three
difficult to
specific
present
classes.
to the committee then what are some of the changes and why it's being
Well, it would be a
rewritten?
huge change, because the way that it had been done was, is that somebody might send me an email at budget time and saying, we need to write AP, what new AP class did we adopt? Somebody? Thank you. That's the
What is
request
it?
for this year, AP European History. And so therefore, in order for us to add that class to our class offerings, we're going to have curriculum for it. So that would have been one curriculum that I would have been, putting down on my list saying that we're going to be adding.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so if you could just present that to the committee in the spring, whatever those changes are, it would be helpful to know. We're trying to just figure out what's going on. More than dictating necessarily, we want to know what's happening.
The reason why I came to the committee with regards to how curriculum is written is because it's going to be a cost factor.
Okay.
We've gotten away with a little bit less money by the way that we were doing it. Now we're going to be looking at, virtually a teacher from every grade level.
Well, if we are switching to what you're proposing, correct?
Right.
Could you write us up a proposal of how that exactly
Sure.
would work in broad terms,
Yeah.
and what kind of,
Yeah, and
Yes.
numbers too,
Yeah, how the
please, because
numbers
the
will
board is
work.
going to want to know about that.
to do it what you consider, Mrs. Torcher, the right way,
Well, I
Right.
think just
The
maybe
traditional way.
an efficient or effective way.
efficiently, and what most other school districts
Yeah.
do?
My experience, yeah.
When, for the sake of planning these meetings and the agendas, do you think you'd be able to do that? Next month, the month after?
Just the
Probably
proposal,
by
you're
March.
asking about
Yeah,
changing the
I
process.
think, yeah, March
By
would
March?
probably be a good
Okay,
date,
thank
okay?
you.
Great.
I have one other question.
You have a question?
Can I have
Sure.
a question before we leave that topic?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
As far as the book purchases, then Mrs. Torsia indicated that she hasn't
I've
been
not
involved in
adopted
any.
any new text, or new,
Right,
new,
right. Right. I was wondering if we could ask the rest of the the building principals if they've been involved in any book purchases also?
They all have to come through me.
So it wouldn't come out of a fund?
No, and the only
that they
other
have.
text that I would be purchasing would be Title I related, which would be funded through the Title I grant, and that would, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, that would be supplemental materials to be able to, support an after-school program, all of anything that I had written into the grant for the expenditures of those monies.
Okay.
So we're usually buying softback books, maybe reading intervention supports, things like that, but not
Okay.
adopting a new text.
Textbook.
Although with that being said, I will sit here and say that a new math series was purchased, not by me,
Yeah.
but it was done, and it should have gone through what you're saying.
And how long ago was that? That is what's, I thought I
Spring
saw.
of 2013, I believe.
And that was actually before you were in the position.
Well, it was
that you're
before I
in.
had any control over the federal dollars.
Okay. And even you're saying even if it's through federal dollars, it
I
still
would still,
comes.
yeah. The whole process would have been different, because I think that I have a very highly valued administrative staff that have a lot to, different things to bring to the table, and to be able to evaluate a text adoption. And they have highly, intelligent staff members who know exactly what they're working with every day, that need to have input into what they're going to be using to be instructing students. So moving forward, I can only tell you that
Great.
the policy would be followed.
And in terms of how that works, I know the policy just says that the board must approve the textbook purchases.
You would approve our recommendation, and I think
Okay.
that we would have gone through, we would have asked for samples from different,
Great.
book companies. We'd have them out for the staff to look at. That would be the process that I would implement.
Asking the committee, would it be helpful for those requests to come through this committee, or would it be, like, I'm asking you guys, what do you think is better?
I think that if I have a text proposal, I think that I would bring it to you and let you know what the three were, and how they all, worked out, or why we recommended this one, and I'd give you, all that
Great.
different information. And then I think at that point, you can either say, we think you might want to look at something else. I think that's where the trust level comes
Yeah.
with us doing our job, and that
Absolutely.
curriculum is our role, and working with our teachers, because they're the ones who are working in the curriculum every day. So
Right.
I trust a lot of what their, input is.
Yeah, thank
To
you.
answer your question, yes, it should come to this committee. 'Cause it's this committee's role to make a recommendation to the entire board.
Yeah.
So-
All right. So that'll be a change from current operating procedure.
One other question on that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You can ask whatever questions you want.
You said there was a new math curriculum books purchased in spring of 2013 for what grades?
3rd through 6th, Go Math, which is aligned to the PA Core, Common Core. I don't want to say it's exactly aligned to Pennsylvania Core standards, but as long as it's Common Core, they're, what's the word I'm looking for?
Compliant?
Yeah, they're meeting.
And who was the publisher of that series?
Who publishes Go Math? Was it Houghton or something? No, I'm saying Pearson?
Pearson.
Pearson.
Is our Compass Learning being used at all in
Compass Learning is
with
being
this?
utilized fully at the middle level.
probably at middle school?
And I always say not at the elementary, but we've changed our benchmark testing from Foresight to Study Island. And so we're trying to get the teachers to use Study Island and phase out Compass Learning, because Study Island is doing what Compass Learning should be doing. And Mr. Hurley's been working with his staff to look at the comparatives.
And is this Study Island, is that a subscription-based program?
It is a electronic software.
It does a variety of things, but one of the things it does is it provides benchmark testing
Okay.
to allow us to measure where a student's progress is towards the PA academic
Okay, so
standards.
does it also, like
But
Compass
it also
Learning?
provides some curriculum, which
Okay.
and so we're comparing some things with Compass and that.
And speaking as somebody who has used Compass Learning from the students, and it was very much interactive, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is this Study Island interactive?
Study Island's very interactive.
Intuitive, I think, is the
and
word, how
it
it-
gives them lots of practice
Okay.
on similar test questions, similar way that the tests would be, not tests would be set up, but it's comparable types of questions.
That's very interesting,
Yeah.
just because I know foresight testing was a pamphlet, right? It was a
No, that was it was a benchmark test.
okay.
But they were not aligning themselves with the Common Core, and we felt that if we would continue to subscribe our monies there, they were only preparing for the current testing that's in place through PSSA, and that wasn't going to help our students continue
Okay,
their
so
progress.
foresight is a program on the computer. What
It's
you're
gone
saying,
now.
but we're not using it
No.
when we're not
We
paying it. It's
discontinued
completely done.
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, it was a paper and pencil.
That's what I was
Yes,
thinking.
We did because of the.
So that's
yes.
why I think it's interesting how we
Yes.
had the digital component through Compass Learning, and then we had the paper
Right.
component as well, which to me seems like would take
Because
up a
there
lot
was
of
a
time.
lot of glitches in the
Yeah.
foresight,
Okay.
yes.
So now it's all in one. You're not doing. It's not two separate
Right.
components. It's just
Right.
one. All right. And
And we're evaluating whether or not we're going to continue to keep Compass Learning. I don't have to keep it at all grade levels. It may continue to stay in place at the high school level because we do use it to help with our summer school. But Mr. Hurley felt that the study island was going to be able to provide him with
great.
the same.
We're looking at that
Right.
right now. We're having our teachers
Right.
compare, Mrs. Armstrong's comparing and contrasting these reports. A decision hasn't been made at this point
Okay.
in regards to that.
But we're definitely going to discontinue it at the elementary level so that we don't have to have two comparable programs and paying for two.
Great. Okay.
So right now we are paying for both, we're subscribing to both
We are.
those.
Yes. And that's because we're under our current last year with Compass Learning, so it's time for me to renew.
And when you say you do new curriculum in the spring and it's approved by us, is that for the following school year or
That's
the
for the
next?
summer.
The next
It's for
one?
the, for curriculum writing in the summer. It's the suggested
Okay.
curriculum writing that's going to be taking place.
That would be implemented
For-
immediately
yes.
that fall?
Yes. Okay. Food method.
Is it?
Food method, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comment on textbook approval?
Thank you.
No, but let me interrupt you for a second. Excuse me, but I've been watching people walk into the meeting, and some have signed in, some haven't. If you would, sometime before you leave, sign the sheet, because we need to turn that in so we can record for posterity everyone who attended the meetings. So please, if you would, before you leave, sign that sheet.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Martino. All right, moving on. We wanted to have a discussion about study halls at DBHS. And this was something that some board members had brought up, how we currently offer multiple study halls at the same time, each requiring a teacher. And some board members view that as a waste of talent and resources. So we just were floating the idea of perhaps combining and consolidating some of these study halls in a bid to save resources and to allow the teachers to do other things. I know Mr. Martino has had some thoughts on this, and he was kind of spearheading this initiative. If he can provide some insight.
I'd like to table the issue for tonight, and I'll explain why. And let me say, too, because I know there's a lot of teachers in the audience. I do. I think it's you've all gone to college to earn your degrees and your continuing education, and you spend a lot of time and money learning how to teach. And I think it's a terrible waste of resources to have you monitoring the cafeteria and monitoring study halls and doing a lot of things aside from teaching. But I had asked Mr. Hankel to answer some questions for me, and I received the answers this morning. And I had a discussion with Dr. Sanker yesterday, and I'd like time to digest those responses and
Would you
talk
be
more
able
about it.
to share those responses with the committee?
Yeah, I just got
Okay.
them today, but
Great.
I'll forward them to you. But I think there's a lot more that needs to be discussed before we try and do anything with it.
Okay.
Do you agree with
I'm
that?
all right
We'll,
with that,
we'll bring
yeah.
it up again?
Yep.
All right. Great. And on that note, we're going to be moving to something which I believe has a lot of people here tonight, and that's an idea, not a proposal at this point, but an idea to look at adding some more AP courses at the high school level. And we will now talk about that. This is an idea that some people on the committee had been floating around. We noticed that Daniel Boone currently offers, I believe, 13 AP courses. And some of us wanted to offer more if possible. And we wanted to figure out a way how to do that without increasing staff and therefore increasing cost. And this is a way that we looked at it. And we have a little proposal here in front of us on the committee, and we reviewed it. And it's important to note what colleges are looking for when it comes to admitting students for their programs. The National Association of College Admission Counselors, they do a study every year, and they ask individual college admission counselors what they're looking for. And the number one most important factor is the student's grades in college prep courses at the high school level. The second most important factor is the strength of the curriculum. Next is admission test scores, then grades in all courses. It all is listed, and this is coming directly from college admission counselors. So the committee wanted to see what we could do to strengthen our curriculum to better equip our students for college. And this is one idea that we had to perhaps do that. Currently, for the sake of everybody in attendance and the members of the public and the recording, we offer, I mentioned, 13 AP classes. We offer 1 in English, 2 in math, 5 in science, 2 in social studies, and 3 in arts.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Your sheet here on what are colleges and universities searching for, I think it's very interesting. I mean, I didn't know how they view things. Is it possible to put this on the website so everyone
Absolutely.
can see it?
I think that's a great idea. I will talk to Sandy tomorrow to see if we can get, are we talking about just a chart of what colleges are looking for?
Yeah, this sheet right here.
Yeah. Where do you think would be a good place to put that? Maybe the guidance website? Or
You know more about the website than I do. I don't know. I just think that
Talk to Mrs. Torch.
yeah.
I
Mrs.
think all
Torsha, do
the
you have a place?
information available to us that is not considered confidential because it's personnel or legal matters, I think everything available to us should be available to everybody else.
Absolutely, I agree. So if we can get that on the website, Mrs. Torsha, do you have an area where you think this
Probably
would be?
high school guidance under the guidance department.
Okay.
And information that they share with
Yeah, I think-
regards to graduation,
Great.
something along that line.
This could be very valuable for students as well, just to know what exactly college admissions officers are looking for. I thought it was fascinating at the
All I
very
know
least.
is, as a member of the public, I would stand at the podium and question something and often got the response, you don't have all the facts. And I'm thinking, well, then why don't I? So
Absolutely.
let everyone have it.
Sure. Yeah.
You were saying what the difference
Yeah.
was going to make in the numbers.
So what we wanted to do was add AP courses, and we wanted to do it in a way that either was cost neutral or preferably in a way that saves money that could be used to save a program like kindergarten or preserve athletics in the school district or offset a tax increase perhaps. And the way to do that is to try to offer more with the resources that we have now. And that is what the impetus was behind this plan. So I want to just discuss what the benefits would be in terms of AP courses, and this was motivated by an effort to add AP courses. We would go from offering only 1 English course, which is AP English Literature and Composition, to offering AP English Language, and that would be offered in 11th grade. We would not be adding any math AP courses, and the math department would not be affected at all by this proposal. We would like to add AP Environmental Science in the science department, and that would be offered to students in 11th and 12th grade, and that would be an elective. Other than that change, we will not be affecting anything in the science department if the board wants to move forward with this concept at this point, and we're not expecting to take any action tonight on the committee level just for the sake of the public. Right now we're just tossing around ideas, which is the job of the committee to investigate. In the social study department, we would jump from only offering 2 courses, which are AP United States History and AP Psychology, to offering AP Human Geography, AP World History, AP European History, and AP Government and Politics. And that would, of course, be a sizable addition. AP Human Geography, it's worth noting, would be offered in 9th grade, and that goes along with the rest of the country. You can actually see on the AP website what grade levels different courses are offered, and AP Human Geography is offered to 9th graders. We're going to have public comment at the end, thank you. AP World History, on the other hand, would be offered in 10th grade, and again, looking at the AP website, that is the grade level it's offered in. AP European History would be offered as an elective in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, and AP Government and Politics would be offered in 12th grade. Then finally, in arts, we would be adding a music course, AP Music Theory. That's something we would like to add if possible. And the whole impetus, again, behind this was expanding AP offering for students. And if you look at some of these courses, if students take them in 9th and 10th grade, that'll free up time later on in 11th and 12th grade for them to take more AP courses. And for those of you who do not know, AP stands for Advanced Placement, and it's run by the College Board, and students can receive college credit for taking these courses and earning an acceptable grade on the exam. So there's a motivation for students to take these courses, and also for parents as well, because it could lead to significant cost savings in college. If students take enough of these courses, they may be able to graduate a semester early, or perhaps even a year early. Now, one of the ways we would do this is by transitioning some current honors courses. If there's an AP course offered that is above that level, we would offer that AP course. For example, Honors English 11. We would instead offer AP English Language. And students who wish to take that AP Language course could. Otherwise, we would offer English 12 for students who do not want to enroll in AP English Language. And English 12 would be your standard English class. And it's important to also note the distinction between the different curriculums. The AP courses are their own curriculums, whereas honors and academic, they're the same curriculum as well, but they are not necessarily the same as the AP course. So an honors and academic course are much more similar than an honors and AP course or an academic and AP course, because fundamentally, at least according to the College Board, honors and academic courses are teaching the same material. So when we do this, if we were to transition Honors English 11 to AP English Language, we would then offer English 12. And that would be for students who, again, do not want to enroll in AP English Language. And what they could do, through the departments, there would be a mechanism. If they don't, let's say they don't want to take an honors course, or they don't want to take an AP course, they'd rather take what was traditionally the honors course. They could, through a mechanism to be worked out by the department, do work required of an honors student that would be graded by the teacher, and they could receive honors weighting and honors designation on their transcript. So we would not be eliminating honors English in 12th grade. Instead, we'd be offering AP English and offering just a different path to get honors English. And we wouldn't be doing this in the math department, because the math department is a separate animal, and I don't want to use the term track, but if you're an accelerated, you will end up somewhere different than if you were in honors necessarily, unless you switch in between. And that's my understanding. Maybe it's a little bit off, but I believe math is different than English and social studies, and something similar in science, because it builds upon each other. The different courses, they build upon each other. In science, we would be offering AP Environmental Science, which there's currently no course offered, so that would be a brand new addition. And then in the social studies department is where you'd see a lot of changes. We would take, for example, honors humanities, and we would offer AP Human Geography, and then we would offer humanities. And if you would like to get honors weighting on your transcript or in your GPA, then you could follow, again, a procedure laid out by the department to receive honors weighting. You may have to do an extra project each semester. The point would be to demonstrate that you went above and beyond what is expected of an academic student, and that you've learned at a deeper level, which is what honors courses are supposed to be.
But my understanding from what you're saying is that you want them to do that in a regular English 11 class and have the teacher differentiate the instruction?
No, I'm saying it would be the same instruction. It would just be on the student if they want to receive that honors weighting.
Okay. May I interject where the problem would lie in that according to the way PIMS is, which is our pupil information management system, and the way that we're reporting is that we can't split out a class within a class.
Okay.
And that would negatively impact our school performance profile and the growth that we're being measured to show that we are achieving with all students K to 12. So
That's one potential, yeah.
That is something that is not administrative related, but is bigger than
Okay.
us.
Yeah, and that's
So
why we're talking about this tonight, to get the feedback from the
to eliminate
administration.
an honors level course, but virtually I'm still understanding that they're still sitting with students who aren't choosing to do honors work. There's students that are in a class that want to be in an accelerated class, and then there's students that are sitting there who want to be honors, and if they want to be honors, then they have to work a little bit harder
Yeah.
and do a little bit more stuff, but they're all sitting in the class together, and you want those however many students to do a different project in order to get a different weight for that class.
It wouldn't be necessarily a different project, but an additional project. They'd still be doing the same work expected of the academic students, but this would be above and
More
beyond.
independent
Exactly, it'd be more
stuff,
independent,
work by the
like
student.
college or
Do
like.
you have a vision of how it could work?
Yeah.
I would not eliminate honors completely at all. Because
Well, we're not talking
This
about
isn't
eliminating.
eliminating.
We're talking
Yeah,
about a
because
different way to
You're
get to the
eliminating
results.
the class. You're eliminating the title honors English, honors whatever. You're
We're
No.
not. Yeah, I don't know if that.
You are. You're
all right, we're
calling
going
You're
to.
calling it English 12 or
Yes.
English 11.
Yes.
Right now, the way that it's recorded and the way that it's being reported to the Department of Education, it's being reported as honors English, which is a huge difference than English
Okay.
11
So if
or
we,
12.
so when it comes to the state, if we were to remove the title honors, that would negatively impact our
Correct.
school. Okay.
And it's going to negatively impact the students that are sitting there, because no matter how you
In terms of the state, right?
But but as an educator and children sitting in a classroom with peers who are doing this work and peers who are expected to do this
Yeah.
work,
But isn't.
Tell us. What,
Okay, yeah.
I
elaborate on
personally
that.
think that you're going to see those kids not wanting to put in the extra effort for that, because the weight's not going to mean as much to them. You got to keep the honors class. You got to keep the honors distinguished level class. They're choosing honors because they don't want to be. I apologize for that. That's not what I was trying to get. I'm just trying to.
We're just trying to understand.
That you cannot tell a student who because I know our guidance counselors across the state of Pennsylvania are sitting and meeting with students and saying, here's what colleges are looking for. I have a senior right now, so I'm living
Yeah.
this, okay? And my son has chosen to take honors classes, and he's chosen to take 1 or 2 AP classes because he knows those AP classes aren't going to make a whole lot of difference in what his field is. Because if those classes aren't going to be in your major and your field, you're not getting that credit at the college level.
I don't think that's entirely true, because you can get elective weighting.
But he's looking specifically at engineering, and the schools that he was going to aren't going to accept it. So he's choosing not to take
The test.
those tests or to be an AP student, because the rigor is 10 times more, and he's a 2-sport athlete, and he values that part of it because, he's getting there. And so he has 1 AP class that he's going to take, but he's already been accepted to a college with money based upon his honors courses, which were weighted, and his activities that he's been involved with. So
Sure.
I believe that schools are trying to, say that this will be the best model and help you be a successful student. But I think
So you're saying that you think it's better what we currently offer than adding additional APs?
I'm sitting here ready to propose to you that we do have 2 additional APs that we would like to bring that we know will not impact the budget.
Okay.
But I also have concern, and I'm going to go off base a little bit from here. If you're looking at adding AP and you're adding all this rigor at the secondary level, and we're still talking about dropping basic skills at the elementary level, and I'm not able to.
Well, we're not talking about that at all tonight, so we're not going to comment on basic skills tonight, because that's not part of the agenda.
My concern is if we're taking away things at the elementary level, we're not going to have the kids ready for the rigor that we're looking at with a projection. You've got to project of what we have in classes in elementary right now and what seats they're going to be sitting in. And if we don't have all of the things in place to make sure that they're proficient students moving on, they're not going to be sitting in anything but an honors class at that point.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Again, what we're trying to figure out, we're just having a conversation.
And I know, and I'm
not just saying that for you. I'm saying that for the sake of everybody in attendance. Yeah.
But I'd be willing to work with you on how we can expand our AP courses. I think that's a great idea, but not at the cost of eliminating honors. If we need to look at something and you want the administration to look at the course offerings, we'll look at the lower end and see how we can mesh those together and help the kids, but taking away your accelerated and your honors.
Let me interject something here, Mrs. Dorshner. Again, this is going back to my lunch with Walt Shaheen today. In his curriculum course committee last year, back in the fall, which I believe you and Mr. Henkel were both at, I believe.
Correct.
His suggestion, and we discussed this today, was to combine AP and honors courses in the same room. Now you're saying, I think I heard you say, you cannot have that distinction according to your reporting system?
According to the way the school performance profile is set up, is the number of students that are calculated that are in AP courses and score, please help me if I say the wrong score, I believe a 3 or better.
Correct.
We are given extra recognition, and that improves our score. So if I have kids sitting in an AP class that truly aren't AP students, and the majority of those students don't take the test and don't get a score, I don't know. I can't tell you how that's going to impact our school performance profile.
No, but I thought I heard you say you cannot distinguish within a class.
No, we're not going to be able to roster two different classes within one teacher.
And understand, I have no answers. I just have questions.
Yes.
Who says you can?
The state, and the way that we're reporting.
Has anybody ever pushed back at the state? Because I keep hearing what the state says, and I think a lot of what the state says is ridiculous.
It's the way that they're collecting the data from the school levels. So we would have to.
So we're managing data instead of managing education.
Well, that part of what they want from us is data.
Wow.
Because data drives decisions in education, and that's what they're trying to focus on.
And I'm not saying anything can be done about it, but I'm
Right.
also saying that perhaps we need to push back at the state a little bit. My question is this. What Walt was suggesting, he was talking again about his college now. He said he would go into a class, and he used biology and he used statistics, but we use biology because I think I can remember what he said. He said you would have this group and this group all studying the same curriculum. But when we use AP and honors, the AP kids needed to report on 1,000 insects and break it down much finer, while the honors kids would report on 500 insects and not have to break it down as far. And that's what he was suggesting back in earlier last fall, was to combine the courses so that basically you had people taking the same curriculum, but some would take the harder, the more rigorous path to earn the AP score while the others earn the honor score. And I don't know that it can or can't be done, but that was his suggestion back in the fall, and I didn't hear any pushback on it back then.
No, we did. I mean, he brought, I was here, I was at the meeting.
I thought so.
I don't think I had any
Absolutely,
comment.
and I didn't agree with him then, and I wouldn't agree with him now, because if these ideas are just so, let's say wonderful, this AP, number one, why is Boone the only one that's even thought about this? Number two, combine AP, I can't talk about the college, I don't teach at the college. They are two totally different curriculum at the high school level. I mean, different books, different curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at Jess Tomaselli's AP English versus even the honors. It's like, oh my. I mean, it's like 13 novels and stuff versus 3. I mean, and some, help me out here, different textbooks for AP. So we're running.
Yeah, that was something I picked up.
AP is determined by the college board.
Yes,
right?
that was
That's a
something where we were
national-
going off of what I know Mr. Sheen had proposed that idea with AP and honors, and we were just trying to look at it from a different perspective to see if you could do it with
Right.
academic and honors. It was just
And this, I mean, I'm just saying, you're referencing, I mean, I've been on the curriculum instruction committee, I've been in most of the meetings, other than the last one, due to couldn't make it. But a document that you're referencing, and we say we should let everybody know, I haven't seen this document.
well, yeah. I mean, it was presented at the last committee meeting, and the point was people who were at the committee meeting would see it. And we're going to talk about it. We're not approving anything tonight, so we have plenty of time
We're having
to
a
talk about it.
conversation.
Exactly. Yes.
And the idea of, I mean, I look at honors, and when I came to the high school at the beginning of last year, in a subject area, or more than one subject area, 50% of the students were in conceptual. The staff and I got together, and the idea was, number one, we felt we didn't have enough students in the upper levels. We felt we were satisfied, we were accepting 50% in conceptual.
Yeah.
So we as a staff got together and said, what can we do? We moved and had a goal of decreasing conceptual because the movement in Burke County is to move away from conceptual. That is the movement. Decreasing by 20% the conceptual number of students. Increasing the number of honors. In addition, increasing the number of AP offerings. We've increased that by 30%. I met with each department chair, and we created a vision for the department, a 5-year vision. What can we do for those students who may not be college bound, so they're not taking a study hall, but what can we offer them? And Kelly, please excuse me, I'm going to do history here. They may not, what are we going to offer? Let's say the males. Well, we wanted to talk about a la carte at the junior and senior level, maybe semester classes for academic students and even honors, if that's the way we go, like great military leaders in history, a semester class. Start to look at things a la carte as opposed to year-long, environmental science, meteorology, oceanography, those types of things of high interest to get kids to continue in academics. But it's a vision for 5 years. The idea of having academic and honors within the same class and saying, okay, I as a teacher, I'm going to talk to these 15 students here, we're going to teach this while you work, and then we're going to switch. Educationally, it's just not sound.
All right.
It is not sound.
I have a question about your a la carte option because I think it's intriguing and could be very beneficial. Do you know any other districts where they're doing this?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice course offerings.
Great.
And that would have been my recommendation to the
we're
study
behind the
hall.
times, actually.
Great.
Right.
Well-
I mean, we would, and I know that's tabled, but I have some ideas for that. So
I mean, if we could see some of these visions and if they could be presented to the committee, we'd
They
love
worked
to
very
work.
hard. I mean,
Great.
I
Great.
mean, it's the first time, I mean, they really have stepped up, and they said, they went with their departments to create a vision of where we are today and where we can be in 5 years.
Yeah, that would be
And the continuation
great to hear.
of change, successful change is made gradually. We increased AP by 30%. We now want to add European history, as you and I have talked about.
And
Why?
music.
Because meeting with the departments, we can say, okay, what AP test could a freshman or a sophomore be successful at? So we wanted to give an offering
Yeah.
to sophomores and freshmen.
Great.
But not discount the seniors if they want to take AP European history. So that's where this whole idea is coming
along with the
from.
music therapy, because there are students that aren't just academic, and they do find music as their career path and their education, higher education path, and that was the other offering that we were going to come to.
I'm
the
thrilled.
table with.
I personally am thrilled to hear about this
And none
because
of
it's
these would be
exactly
increase
thinking.
in staff.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a
Increase in
question,
staff,
though.
3 or 4 teams.
Yeah, sure.
Let me ask you a question. You're saying you got together with your department chairs and created this vision.
I had them go to the court, yes.
Was it shared with the board?
Was it shared
Was
with
it
the-
shared with the board?
No, just, I mean, literally within.
And my question then would be, why not? I mean, and I'm new to the board, so is Mrs. Bite. So,
Why?
we wouldn't know if it had
We
been.
haven't had a curriculum committee meeting for 2 months.
And we haven't been part of the
turnover,
agenda.
Right, we weren't a part of the past two agendas. We do have things that we want to
Sure.
bring, and these are the things that we would.
Well,
want
that's
to
perfect because we're
pull
talking
out.
about
Good,
at the end of the
though.
meeting topics.
But I mean, that's the reason why, Rich, because if Switch, Walt said, let's not have any more meetings, and I have this stuff down.
Oh, so you're saying this is relatively new?
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
let me tell
Very
you,
new.
and I don't mean to step on Connor as the
No,
committee chair here, but as the board president for this committee, for board meetings, for the committee of the whole meetings, I don't still understand the distinction, but if you have ideas that are going to better the school district, share them with us. Don't, I mean, every meeting there's a spot on there for other topics, new business, whatever. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't have all the answers. I don't think the 9 board members collectively have all the answers. There are a lot of questions. So if you or anybody out there has ideas that will better the school district, I'm not saying we're going to do them. Share them with us, though, so we can consider them. You asked if these are such wonderful ideas, why is nobody else doing it? I don't know, and I don't care. If an idea is worth considering, I don't care who else is doing it.
I get it.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're just, at this point, talking about it. We had some thoughts up here, and we wanted to put them together. And again, we're not going anywhere tonight with this, or we might not end up going anywhere at all, but it's the beginning of a discussion. It's the beginning of a discussion about adding APs, about changing a way, and doing it all in a cost-neutral way.
It has to be educationally sound.
Absolutely, sure. And that's why, again, we're having these meetings.
That's why we're letting you talk.
Yeah.
But just, as I said, we haven't been included in the agenda in the last 2 times. I mean, because I do have things.
Yeah, we're going to, that again, I'm mentioning here, we're going to be talking about topics, and that's the time. It is within the purview of the committee chairman to select the agenda. It's not that the administration dictates the agenda to the committee, and we'll talk about what we want to talk about next.
Dictating, we're talking about collaboration.
Absolutely, and that's why on here we're going to have a discussion about topics for the agenda. So we're going to get to that. Now, I think we can hear some discussion from the committee about in general. I know, let's broaden this from just the document that you were provided to, in general, APs and what Mr. Hankel was talking about earlier, if possible.
I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know enough about it other than to listen. I have enough information to listen to both sides of the discussion,
Yeah.
but I really don't have a lot to offer on it now.
Sure.
Well, obviously, if it violates our PIMS reporting, it's not an option.
More importantly, beyond the reporting, how it's going to affect the instruction and the growth that's going to be expected to come out of there, because that's what we're being held to, is the growth of students. And if we can't show growth and we show a decline in growth in learning, which could possibly happen, having that big of a dissect there, that will negatively impact the district.
So you're not saying, I just want to make sure we're getting the most accurate impression. You're not saying it's impossible to do, you're just saying it would negatively reflect the growth.
And
Okay.
that's a problem.
And that's, yeah, definitely it's a
Then
problem.
that trickles down and
Yeah.
negatively impacts the teacher
Absolutely.
evaluation, because
Yeah.
they're being tied to the PVOS data.
Sure.
They're being tied to the school performance, and that's a percentage that if they're being deemed to have this as their group to instruct,
Yeah.
it's not going to be
Yeah, great.
Well, here's
it's not
my
going to be
question.
fair.
About how, when I read this, I kind of had the vision that you would have, 25 kids in a class, and they'd get a syllabus maybe at the start of the year, and they'd have a choice of which path to take, and that students sitting next to each other, the teacher would teach at one level to all the students. It was just a matter of what they did outside of the classroom.
Yes.
To try to foster a little bit of independent
Yeah.
research and accountability to the students who are so inclined to work outside the classroom. And then they would hand in their projects for grading, and they would be graded at the expectations of that side of the syllabus. So really, two students in the classroom sitting next to each other wouldn't even know who was academic technically and who was following the honors. It'd be between. No, I'm just right. They would, but I also understand that as soon as they leave anyway, they go and exchange information about what the different assignments were at the academic and But anyway, I just want to clear the vision.
Yeah.
Is that
The idea of having
that-
a more student-focused and student-driven upper-level program, I don't think is a bad one. It's
Right.
something that we tried to incorporate into the idea to have discussion about, and
then
that's
they
something
would
to see if
take
our administration could move
two
forward with
different
something
tests?
similar.
Let me
I don't
just-
know.
let
I
me
mean,
just-
this is something the committee was going to talk about if we wanted to move forward. Again, it's just an idea at this point. I don't think people fully understand that.
I was
we're
just wondering
just-
how we can
yeah.
massage the idea to
Yeah.
make it work.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to hear what the high school comes back with in terms of what they've developed and seeing where that goes.
I mean, the definition, if you look at the definition of an honors student, I mean, just an honors student, their thinking capabilities are at a higher level.
Right.
That's a fact. So when you say the teacher stands in front of or teaches a generic lesson, an honors student intellectually during the lesson, the interaction, on Bloom's taxonomy in the honor section, they are teaching at levels 4, 5, and 6, which are the uppermost levels of Bloom, synthesis, evaluation, application. As opposed
Okay.
to at the
Academic.
you're going to need more comprehension going into application. And so, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So somebody is not going to get
Be served
their full
well.
instructional needs met
Right.
if you combine them within. That's the
Got
reason
it.
why. I've taught grades 6 through 12. I remember way back in the 80s, going from this group to this group, back to this group, back to this group, the noise level is never reduced. And you say, okay, work on this. Yeah, okay. I mean, you do your best, and that's the problem. But are you going to meet the needs of every student, whether it's an academic or whether it's an honors level student, within that section? So what you're saying is, okay, we have the APs, and we're going to increase APs a great deal, which I'm okay with, I'm fine with. And we can do that over time
Yeah.
without increasing staff. Absolutely
Great.
we can. But what we're saying is, we're going to keep AP, but you honors, we're combining with academics, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. Well, now, are you creating an unfair situation for those students? I don't think it's an educationally sound concept. It's like a school within a school. It's a subject within a subject. Because they are two totally different subjects.
Thank you.
Mr.
I wasn't
Henkel.
aware of that. I thought that a lot of the academic and honors classes were using the same books and that they were just doing it in a different fashion. And like in the social studies program in specific. Is what I-
Their
And
reading's
that's
more intense.
accelerated. I mean, we even added the accelerated this year for the simple reason the social studies department said there was an even a greater discrepancy because there's not a conceptual.
Yeah.
There's a great discrepancy between within an academic. So they said, Kelly came to me and said, hey, listen, for those 30 to 50 kids, so we created those couple accelerated sections.
Which is between honors and academic, is
Yes,
it?
where it's kind of the same, but assignments, there's more writing required,
Right.
higher level thinking skills, the thought process, so on and so forth. They go deeper into some topics.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Mr. Henkel, I know you mentioned that you had this vision that was worked out with the departments, and I know I saw some teachers motioning that they are they prepared to discuss their visions? But I want to make sure it's okay with Mr. Henkel because I know it's his building.
I'll tell you what.
You want to wait? Okay.
I'll meet with them and we'll discuss the visions.
All right. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure everything's because Mr. Henkel's the one representing the entire school, and I want to make
We're
sure
gonna
that
just-
it's under his control.
You understand where we're coming from, though?
Oh, we're talking about the vision. What? Yeah.
Yeah, this
We all
is
spent
good dialogue.
time, a
I
lot of
appreciate it.
time, like really looking at what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I even took into consideration what you had said of how could we make this work
Sure.
instead of saying not. So I have some things.
Yeah. I can't
Could you
wait.
submit them?
I want to hear it. But I want to give Mr. Henkel. I
Well,
want to
that's
offer him the
something totally
courtesy
different.
of.
That's something
Yes,
totally
I
different.
understand.
Okay,
So.
what Kelly's talking about, what we're talking about is
Yes.
different. Kelly and like Terry
We've
Miller,
never
the
did-
department chairs,
Right.
they have a 5-year vision of their department.
Yes.
Which is much different than
Than what I'm talking
what
about.
she's talking about.
This is
5-year vision is courses and where they're
Yeah.
headed, things
Okay.
like that.
This is about Honors 2.0.
Okay, yeah.
Wait
well,
1 second, please. Are you now?
Were you opening it up?
yeah, we're not opening
Are
it
you
up.
opening this up?
We're not
Because
opening it
once
up.
you
to
do
a-
that,
I understand. Yeah,
I'm
we.
just asking.
I'll wait till public.
That's thank
Let's do
you.
that.
Yeah, I mean, the
we
idea
almost
of
done?
Honors 2.0 was only brought up at the last committee meeting, and I know not too many people took copies that time, so it's interesting to hear what people think it is.
Listen to the tapes.
Okay, great. And I'm glad that people do listen to the recordings, because sometimes we wonder if people, at least I do, but so we can talk about that at public comment. Again, this is the beginning of a dialogue. We understand now that there's some issues with this, and we're excited to hear what the administration is proposing as an alternative. After hearing this information about PIMS, I can't imagine that we would ever move forward with this in its current state, so rest assured, don't worry, because I imagine there was some opposition to that. But we are very interested in hearing what the alternatives is, and if this is the beginning of a conversation, which it obviously is, then I can't wait to see where that will end up, and I think that the department visions will play a large role in determining what that is. On that note, any feedback from the comment?
I'd
from the
just be
committee?
interested in more
Information,
input
yeah.
from our teaching professionals, from our administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get through these next 2 topics so we could hear what
Yeah,
people
sure.
have to say.
All right, great. Now we're going to move on to new business, and we're going to talk about the grading scale in the Daniel Boone School District. And this was something that was actually brought up by a member of the public who is a teacher in the district. And she mentioned how we are putting her idea, and I don't want to speak for her if she's here tonight. I'd love to have her speak in public comment. But she mentioned that we are putting our students at a disadvantage by having a 92 to 100 be an A when other school districts are doing 90 to 100. And that comes into the picture when talking about college and talking about scholarships. If a student in Daniel Boone has a 91, they have a B. If a student in a school district like Governor Mifflin has a 90, they have an A. And that could lead to some issues and ramifications in college admissions. And Mr. Hankel also brought this up when we met individually, and Mrs. Torsha as well. So I was wondering if Mr. Hankel can provide an overview on what his vision is in terms of the grading scale.
Well, when looking at it, Angela Owens is a parent, and she has a student.
We were trying to avoid saying that, but go ahead.
It's answers fine. No, I've always wondered, because I came from 2 districts that do have 90 to 100, 80 to 89, so on and so forth. And I always felt our Boone students were at a disadvantage. Now, the perception is that when all of the transcripts from all the high schools go to the colleges put them together and make everything equal.
Yeah.
That's the perception. In the December 18th survey, number 1, forgetting the grades, there are certain scholarships that say if you have a B or better, you may apply. Well, this school district B is lower than this, so our students can't apply because they don't have a B. Or other students can apply because they do. Okay. 89% of colleges surveyed stated that they compare applicants to all those students in the applicant pool. The fact that 55% of those say they don't bother recalculating. They really don't. There's so many transcripts that come through, they just take a look at it, and that's the way it is. So in a perfect world, our students are a level playing field. In the real world, our students are not.
Wait. Our students are at a disadvantage?
Yes.
Okay.
Are not in a level playing field. Okay. Many schools are changing to the 10-point grading system. 86% of all the school districts in Montgomery County are at the 10-point grading scale, and that's next door. All right, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can have the strict 10-point, or you can have a sliding 10-point, where you go to the 90 to 100, 80 to 89, 70 to 79, and when you get down to the lower ends, you still have like 62. So it's the failure number is still higher. all right?
Mhm.
And you look at it that way. There's two ways to look at it, and we haven't siphoned that out. I've just had
Okay.
discussions with our guidance department.
All
And there's
right.
feelings that, hey, that's a nice way to look at it that way, because students who are getting 50s and 60s across the board, or they are college bound, a lot of times they are not,
Right.
not the 100%, a lot of times they are not.
Right.
So we want to get everybody kind of on a level playing field with everybody else in the area. So
Great.
that's a discussion that I've had with guidance that has been just minimally brought up with the rest of the day.
Yeah. Again, we want to do everything we can to put our students at an advantage, and if that means changing what an A is and a B is, then that's something I think we should investigate. And the reason I wanted to discuss it at committee was also to look at, I know that's DBHS, but what about the rest of the district?
It's the same at the elementary level, which I've had a problem with since being a building principal, that we're evaluating children who are still learning new skills, and they're being evaluated at a 92 as being an A, and clearly, I even have, actually, we don't even use A, B, we're using numerical numbers, which I think is ludicrous when we are addressing their skill deficit or their skill ability to standards, which are, you know, that you're basic, below basic, proficient, advanced. And if we're going to, this was something else I would like to put on to the next agenda, is to review the whole elementary
Great.
report card, K to 8 actually, because you're going to get thrown in there too to have it evaluated on what we're doing, and to really realign the elementary report card. I don't feel that grades for something that the students might only be engaged in, like science and social studies, for maybe only half a semester, and they're expected to have a grade in there, and then that grade determines whether or not they reach in 5th grade recognition, academic achievement, or academic excellence, when that should, it's not a true depiction of what they really know. And when we're grading children at the lower levels, and if we're utilizing anything that's outside of the classroom, is that all the students' work? You know, we have to take that into consideration for children who are getting bonus points, you know, because they had, you know, a whole lot of help on a project, whereas another child might not have that same support at home and submits a project and not getting the same equivalent amount, and therefore there's a difference between the 92 and the 90.
Okay.
So
I have a quick question, and maybe I'll show my, I don't want to say I'll show my age, because I'm probably one of the youngest people here, but that being said, when I was in elementary school, we had we had handwriting as a course. Do we still have that?
I've removed that.
Okay. I was wondering, because how do you tell, what's the difference between an 86 in handwriting and an 85?
It's subjective.
Yeah.
It's subjective. It's the, that we can have a sidebar on handwriting conversation.
From my perspective, when the teacher/resident brought this up at the last meeting, I think Mrs. Bites and I were both surprised. I don't know about Mr. Kurtz, but what I'd like to see is what your recommendation is. But back to what you said about the level playing field, I don't know why we would be out of step with all the other schools. I don't understand that. So whatever your recommendation is, I'd rather you supply it than us try and recreate it.
Thank you, because I've been trying to redo this report card for 5 years.
Well, great. This is the opportunity.
I have a question. Mr. Erico, I think you said 86% of the schools in Montgomery County are already at the 10-point. Do they have some sort of flooring in there that you were describing? Do they do it the modified, or I'm not sure? No, it's basic, straight. And how about other neighboring counties, or do you have sense statewide?
I can get it for the next meeting.
Would you please?
I can get
Is it a new movement, or is it people that never changed? Are we sliding?
It's a movement, from what I gather, from the 93 or above to the 90.
It's like the No Child Left Behind?
It's a movement from, where I've been. I mean, I didn't really know there wasn't. I always thought everybody was 10 point.
Yeah, that's the genesis of this for me.
Yeah. So we know that.
So was it a trend, and they're trending back? Is it?
He was
Is there
here
any?
when that happened.
The rationale was to increase the standards of the courses, to raise the kids higher, which I don't think any of our staff really agreed with at the time. It was a small group of people's opinion to say, well, if you're going to make an A in 93, our kids are going to come up.
Well,
And I don't
That
know
they
if
would
that's
reach for it?
educationally
Is that
sound,
the-
it just got
right,
overstaffed,
right,
but I don't
right.
think there's anybody in this room here that agrees with it, and that a 90 should be.
Well, I'm glad.
How long ago? Just about, what are we talking? How long have we been?
I would say
10, 15?
95 is right when I started, because I was like, what?
Thank you.
Now, remember something. Whatever you recommend, even if the three of us buy it, then Mr. Kurtz has to sell it to the entire board, so.
And if it's in the
It's good
student's best
discussion.
interest, we need to do what we can to make the change. And I'm very excited to hear what the proposals are for the
I
entire
just think
school
it would be a
district.
better way at the elementary level to better present to parents how their children are performing. Because
Yeah.
a 98 doesn't really mean anything if you're not, looking at the criteria in order to earn that 98. A more standards-based type of report card at the elementary level could be more informative to parents.
If you don't mind me asking, and Mr. Henkel, I know that you might say that you weren't asked to be included in the agenda, but I would like to know, why hasn't this been brought up before? I mean, especially if you've mentioned you've been working on it for 5 years.
Well,
it was informally with me.
Okay,
Informally.
sure.
mine was informal too, and then it just,
Yeah, not to put you on the spot, I just want to know,
well, it
like,
became more work than what maybe other people wanted to put
Okay,
into
all right.
it, but I'm willing to.
okay,
And I heard the same thing Mr. Simmons said. It's more rigorous. It's
yeah, it's just changing a bench, yeah,
and also, when you think about it, if passing is 60, there is hope too. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
There is hope, because the worst thing you can have is a middle school student. I don't think it affects elementary as much as a middle school student or a high school student. You're in the third marking period, and there's nothing they can do to pass that class. A 60 gives a little more hope, which keeps them in the ball game.
It keeps them engaged in the
Absolutely.
process.
And if there's hope, because the teachers will just, come on now, do this, we'll get you there. And
I like it at the bottom end, too.
I know there's a desire for the public to weigh in, and I know typically these meetings in the past have been run more open, but we have a very large audience, and we want to get out of here. We don't want these meetings to go on forever. So if we could bring these things up during public comment, it would be great. But this is just something that that Mr. Henkel had mentioned, and Ms. Owens, and anything we can do. When do you think you can bring forward a proposal that we might be able to act on? Would that be the next meeting, perhaps?
absolutely.
And Mrs. Torsha for the entire district? Is it?
Well, I can't speak for them.
Elementary, you're thinking about just tying it to the same wording that the core, basic,
I'm gonna need a
proficient,
little
below
more.
basic,
Okay.
4
Just
levels?
support it sufficiently, because like I said, it's going to have to be sold to the entire board and to the superintendent.
Do you see that we could pass something like this incrementally, Mrs. Torsha? Like high school grading, we can agree on this year?
I don't think that it should be a challenge. I think that if the curriculum committee is endorsing what, is being said, and that, that there's collaboration between administration and the committee, and that we're, on the same page, I think that it should be easily brought to the rest. I mean, in the past, usually the rest of the board felt that, the work was done at this committee level, and that if it's being a recommendation from the committee and everybody's in agreement, then, yeah.
Well, you would
do any
hope
of the-
that you just support it enough so that
Yeah.
you can present it, with reasonable support.
And
3
another
minutes or less.
another question for Mr. Henkel and Mrs. Torsha. And again, you'll be presenting this later, I understand. But in terms of implementing it, I know you had mentioned many times that you do things incrementally. That's the way you do things. With this, are you looking to how would you do it? Is my question.
Ratings?
Yes. Would it just be immediately? Would
Well,
it
that's
be?
not implementing anything, that's just changing over.
Okay.
But
so-
you wouldn't do it till September, right?
Right.
You're not gonna do it
couldn't
immediately.
happen until the next.
and that was my question.
Computer
was the time
change,
frame.
I mean, software changes, simple
We
enough?
would have to make sure that we work with technology and the way that our report cards are run, because we do depend on CSIU for our upper grade level report cards. So that would be the work that would have to be done.
So the building principal's here. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, just that most school districts have already moved to a standards-based report card. We have not at Daniel Boone at the elementary level. That's really what I can speak to right now. And I would think that the best way to kind of attack it would be one grade at a time, kind of roll out one grade each year. Because it is an intense process, and we actually did start looking at it. Maybe, I don't know, what do you think?
It was a changeover between our tech directors.
Right.
Is where we started looking at it, and one was going out, one came in, was here for a short time, and then just kind of
Right. And,
fell down.
you know, it takes time.
Yeah.
Right now, there's so many changes in everything, Common Core, teacher performance effectiveness, and there's so many new mandates. It's just a matter of
Prioritize.
The other question would be how you'll communicate this, of course, to the community and parents. Would it be a letter? Because they would need to know
I
as
think
well.
that we should include this as part of our have a representative attend the parent-teacher
Okay.
meetings and get on their agendas.
Do we currently have a board member who's a liaison to the parent-teacher
I
organizations?
don't believe that we have a board member, but we do have administration,
Okay.
elementary administration. I don't know how active the PTC is at the secondary level anymore. Yeah. So, but we do always have administration.
Okay. All right, great. Well, that'll be on the agenda. I know you mentioned you could present something at the next meeting, or would you rather wait to piggyback with what Mrs.
Well, the
Torch
next
said?
meeting was,
We don't have a date.
Well, we'll determine.
no, for the next meeting, I
Yeah.
can have what's going on grading
Sure.
in the surrounding
Yeah.
districts.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I meant.
that's absolutely, I can
Right.
bring that to you. And I will have a discussion with our department chairs, but based on what I've heard, it was basically told to them that that's the way it's gonna be some years ago.
Okay. And that's not the best way.
I just want to make sure that in the evaluation, we hear both the pros and the cons before we make a decision on it.
Yeah.
So even if we don't have like a lot of advocates here, I don't want to make sure we're not making a mistake.
But the timetable for this would be, again, we couldn't do it this year, so it would be regardless in September. So we do have time. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now the final item of new business will be the next meeting date and topics. Should we choose a standing night to meet, or?
I would make my life simple.
Yes, mine too.
All right, well, let me look at my
I mean,
calendar.
I don't know if you can possibly do before Monday committee or board meetings. That would be,
Me too.
Excellent.
That would be very convenient for me.
we'll just have you on the phone longer.
I know, well, the thing is, I mean, sometimes the commute being on the phone in the car with the committee meeting could be difficult. But, like, I'd rather have, and again, we'll determine, would we like to have, I don't know if, maybe we could do that, so you're talking about perhaps doing it before a board meeting. That's what Mrs. Torch is suggesting, and Mrs. Bites is
Or
also.
stick with a Monday,
Sure, maybe the other Monday, the Monday we're not doing board, we could be
if
doing
that would be
this.
convenient for you with,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be commuting
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, Dr. Sanker has suggested, or not suggested, but she's talked about in other districts, they have the committee meetings leading right into the board meetings. And it would be one less night of the month that you're going to a meeting.
Yeah.
And I know, like, the facilities committee is already meeting the first Monday of every month. So there's one Monday out. The board has 2 Mondays of the month. I mean, we're running out of Mondays.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's any way possible, since Carol's saying she would prefer to do it leading into the board, so would I.
Okay.
If there's any way you can do it.
Yeah, sure. I will see what, I mean, I'll take that in consideration in scheduling the next meeting, but I'm going to have to see if that'll work out for me.
All right, well, you don't have to decide that
Yeah.
right this minute.
I won't be deciding right this minute, but that's something we'll think about.
What are we going to decide right this minute as far as the next date and time then?
We will not be determining the next date at this time. That's what we're going to be determining. We'll figure something out.
What Mrs. Kramer would like would be a list of when each committee is going to meet
Yeah.
each month, so she could publish it to the
Once and done.
administration, to the public, so everybody knows.
Yeah. And I
when
understand
the
that your
committees are
request is to do it before the meeting, and I'm going to see if that'll work for me. And
Well,
if
how
it-
about our staff, though? What about their availability?
Yeah,
Well, they're already required to be at board meetings, so that would be very convenient
for
because
them,
most of us
yeah.
don't go home in between. I don't,
Now,
can't speak for everybody. but-
If we were to do that, what time would
What would be
best?
realistic?
Yeah, if our board meetings start at 7:30, 5:30.
Well,
We want parents to be able to attend too, and if they want to, and
Well, this
and they
was an
work.
hour and a half meeting right
Well,
here.
it's not
Could
over
we do
yet.
6?
But
I think 6 o'clock. would
6
be-
to 7:30?
And I think
6-ish?
if you don't have as many, this
Right,
was a
right.
little
We
bit
could
more
control
in-depth.
it with the
I think
agenda.
that we could keep it concise.
Sure.
I mean, I did some pretty good staff development the other day in an hour with my administrator.
And I really appreciate how
so-
prepared you all came for
Yes.
the meeting. That really helps. Personally, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. So,
I mean, you could try 6. I mean, if the board meetings are still set for 7:30, it gives us an hour and a half.
For now, yeah.
But then we know that we have to,
all right. Well,
I actually
But
have
not
it
the
on the
next one.
agenda for this coming Monday to move the board meetings up to 7. But if we're going to run a committee meeting into the board meeting, I don't want to try and limit the committee meeting to an hour.
Right.
So I would just scratch that from the
or even
agenda.
5:30. I mean, it depends. I mean,
yeah, maybe it could
And
depend
just
on
try it.
the length
We
of the
try
agenda.
posting the agenda and people see, it doesn't,
But 5:30
Right.
doesn't leave people time to get home from work
Not
and have
too
something to
much,
eat
no.
Yeah.
before they come to a meeting.
And I think that's
either.
something that maybe at the board level we should discuss. I think it would be helpful to post the agendas maybe on the board website if that wouldn't be too much of a burden to ask.
Well,
Right.
there's a member of the public here that I discussed that with today, and I don't know why we don't post the agenda. I actually think possibly we'd get more turnout. I agree with
People
the
knew what we were
person I was
talking about, yeah.
If they knew what
Okay.
was going to be discussed.
Well, I'd like to do that at least with this committee. Of course, that's a board function, what we post and what we don't. And I can report that out at our next meeting. That's something we'd like to begin doing.
Do you have dates that you want us to consider at this time?
No, I
for the
mean,
next
no,
meeting?
I just wanted to get your view on when would be, I understand
You're
now
not in a
before.
Okay.
And now I just have to see.
So you're
if-
just going to,
I think that should work out, but it'll be confirmed with Sandy when we set that date.
later in February would be probably,
Okay.
I'm out the first Monday of February, so. I
Well,
know
but if we're
that's not a
going to
board
lead it into the
meeting anyway,
board
but-
meeting,
It would
Then
be the
Patty
next
should be
Monday.
there if we're going to be leading it into the board meeting, right?
Patty would
Yeah,
be
she
there.
would be. during
Excuse me,
Monday.
Dr. Sanker, yeah. All right. Now, in terms of topics to discuss, what do we have? I know we would like updates. Of course, we're going to be keeping Common Core on the agenda just to receive an update. Modified block scheduling, we're going to keep that on the schedule or the agenda. We tabled study halls at DPHS, so obviously that'll be on the agenda.
Yeah, even the block scheduling, I will try to contact the people that wrote positive comments about it and see if they'll give me information on it, if they'd even be willing to come to the meeting and discuss it.
Great.
I know that I could get the principal from Conrad Weiser High School to come. She is a huge supporter of block. She doesn't think there's anything else other than block to teach by. If you wanted to hear just her perspective
Boy, that'd
on
be
I'd like to hear it.
I
That
think
would
that
be
she would
great.
probably share some of her time because she's anxious to just get the word out on block for you to.
So all she would need to know is when Mr. Kurtz
Right,
decided to have a meeting.
if that would be convenient, if there would be a time that would be convenient for her, but I think that, as a professional, that she would probably, if she's available, I
Yeah.
can't promise it, but I would
Absolutely.
at least reach out to her because I feel that she has a wealth of information.
No, I'd like to hear
But
it.
now understand, she only works and has worked in the 4x4 block, not modified.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting regardless to hear her perspective.
the other thing,
Well, if I understand it correctly, the modified is simply.
Taking a block and splitting it in half and
Yeah,
running.
it's a way of
running
doing it
language
so
and
you
math
don't
all year
have,
long.
that was the one thing I saw today that was an exception to all the positive comments, was having Algebra 1 this fall and not having Algebra 2 till the following
There's not a lot of
spring
data
of the
that
next year.
supports that kids aren't successful either, so.
One way or the
It's
other.
conversation.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to keep the conversation going.
Yeah. And again, that I want to emphasize, we didn't decide looking at this on anything tonight. And one may
Well,
say that we're being
topic-
inefficient,
a topic
but
that we
that's
do
what we're
need
here to talk.
To put on there is the high school course selection and, you know, where we're going to, if there's additions, deletions, whatever it is that you want to propose, but we need to at least have conversation at the committee level so that we can get a course selection book together and then present it to the board for adoption, because that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That needs to be on the next agenda.
All right. What I am looking at. Oh, go ahead.
Can't we just have a set spot on the agenda every month for
The high school?
them to
Well,
report
oh, sure.
in, like on whatever item is.
If
that
you and I
Mrs.
can
Torship
collaborate
feels-
on an
Yes,
agenda,
again,
that would-
and that's also what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
I'd rather have
I
the whole
guess I'd
committee
rather have some
collaborate
collaboration.
on the
Well,
agenda
okay.
right now. I know
will-
you might have
will-
more.
Well, I will get collaboration from my staff,
Yeah.
but I would just like the availability to collaborate with the committee
Yeah.
to be able to say, here's what we need
Yeah.
to do our job. And we
I
need,
think,
you
yeah.
know,
All right, great. So what?
Maybe we could break it down into 15 or 20-minute chunks of discussion, too, where you can try to think, well, you got 3 things you want to present, but you
Right.
go with 2 this month, thinking maybe
well,
10
and
minutes,
it may depend
roughly.
on intensiveness as
Well,
well.
exactly. It could get away from us, but let's
Right.
not have you bring 5.
Right.
And if you're bringing 2,
So the course selection
and we
has to
can-
be
Yeah.
reviewed, discussed, and we
That's
need to
top
adopt it
priority for
because
next.
it's going to go out very shortly.
Okay.
We're already
Definitely.
behind.
Great.
I
Okay,
think
so that's on.
What Mrs. Bites is suggesting, though, is important, because if you're going to start a meeting at 6, that has to end at 7:30
Right.
for the board
Let's try to be
meeting,
time
and allow
conscious
time
so
for
we can
public
get it.
comment, that means you have an hour and 15
Right.
minutes to cover however many topics you're going to cover.
We'll get better at that, I think, if we
So
all
that
try
they're
to
going
move
to have to be
along.
limited. And
Yeah.
as far as your course selection guide, I was speaking with Mr. Basil a few days ago, and he wants a calendar. He says there are things that the board is supposed to do every January, every February, every March. I don't know what these things are. And I don't know that.
No, wouldn't that
these
be an
people-
issue
On that
for
note,
Mrs.
I'm going
Dr.
to interject.
Sullivan?
I've been working with Sandy to get
Right.
the agendas for these past committees, and I'm going to go back and look at every January. We've looked at this. That being said, the committee's only been in existence for 3 years now, but still.
But I think we need to institutionalize what's
Absolutely.
required of the board, because you have deadlines for certain things like the course selection guide and stuff.
Grant, fund, that type of stuff that I have to.
Yeah. All right, so what I have on here so far, I know we tabled discussion of study halls. Maybe we should wait, because there's nothing pressing with that at this point.
That's going to go along with the course selection.
Oh, it's going to go
Okay.
right with it?
Okay,
I
good.
think with what we're like
Great.
to propose.
Okay.
Excellent. So we'll tie that in with the course selection guide / study
News to
halls.
Mr. Henkel, but
All right.
I'll inform him later.
Excellent. And then I'd also like to, I'm going to take off the Honors 2.0 framework, and I'd like to instead replace it with the department visions. And if you're ready, are you ready for that, Mr. Henkel?
Next month?
Sure. Before the board meeting, it'll probably be, you said you're not available at the beginning of the month,
Not the 3rd.
not the 3rd. Okay. And is that the board meeting on the 3rd?
No,
or?
it's not.
Oh, yeah,
It's
then,
just
okay.
It's just a
Yeah, all right. So,
Just a Monday that I won't be back
Sure.
in town yet.
okay.
I'll be back in town, but I won't be very good.
Got it. Okay. You're okay. So we're going to take off Honors 2.0 framework and instead hear what the departments themselves would like to do over the next 5 years. And if you could focus also on what we could do soon. I don't know how far out we're looking, but things we can begin to do next year, not just pushing it all down the road, but coming up soon if possible. And I'm very excited to hear that, and I'm sure the rest of the committee is as well. So what I'm looking at, for the sake of everybody, and please add if there's anything, modified block scheduling, update on Common Core.
Why don't you just change that to block scheduling, period?
And how much information do you want at that time? I mean, because that in itself could be a whole meeting. I mean, maybe we
Yeah.
need to have a separate.
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, you said that it can't be implemented.
There's no way
Yeah.
it'll be implemented come fall 20.
So
come the next school year.
I don't want to get into the habit of saying that there's not a rush to consider these things. There's obviously not, but I don't want to fall into the habit of not deciding things at all. But there's no rush at all, like we just said, so why don't we push that? If there's no objection from this committee.
I just think that'll tie up a lot of your time
Yes.
for that meeting if we're looking to try to have the meeting before
Yeah.
a board meeting.
Is that fine with the committee if we move that to a later date?
Maybe I bring somebody in at the committee of the whole meeting and have a presentation, much like Mr. Seldenbridge did on the budget, or how Mrs. Trainer used to do on her,
Yeah.
different things.
That sounds efficient.
My
too.
thinking on that is that the board is going to want the committee to look at it anyway. So
Okay.
instead of spending the time at the board meeting, let's
That's
just
fine. Yeah.
do it here. That's my view at
Why
least.
don't you, since we're not looking at doing it in September, why don't you talk to
Dr. Adams.
what's her name?
Dr. Adams, Betsy Adams.
Talk to her about late spring, because I think the board has enough facing it right now that there's plenty to work on without spending a whole meeting on something that is a year away.
Right.
All right.
And she can give you what her projection looked like and how it worked out.
All right. So we'll be waiting. I'm glad we're having this discussion because it sets up a calendar for the committee, which is very helpful. So we're going to talk about block scheduling in late spring. We're going to be talking about the department visions. We're going to be talking about course selection guide and study halls, and we're going to be talking about the grading scale. Is that good, or are there any other items? Mrs.
I'll have
Briggs?
to let you know.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
have to go back and look at my notes on what I
Sure.
may need to bring.
And I am
There's something
fine
else.
with whatever you and Mrs. Torsia put together. And Mrs. Bites or I have suggestions for the agenda. We'll just send them to you.
Great. Okay. All right. Well,
I have one more.
you have one more thing?
I have a little more interest in hearing more about and I don't even know if it's our realm, the Compass Learning versus the study island. Can we, not for discussion for tonight, but could you put something together like why because my understanding of I'm an advocate. I had it I'll be honest with you, I had it at my last school and I like it. I can't speak to Study Island, I haven't seen it, but I like to see what, they claim to be Common Core compliant, they claim to be able to provide AP classes if you use it
But
in
I
high
don't believe
school.
they do benchmark testing, Compass. It's not being
Is that
used
the sole,
same-
could you find out,
Okay.
I mean, could you just revisit that?
Because
and,
the importance of the value of the benchmark testing is for us to be able to determine how our students are doing, progressing towards the core standards and how the prediction is that they will perform on PSSA testing. And that way, the data that we get from their benchmark testing, we can narrow down all the way to a question. If 90% of the students are getting that wrong, then we need to go back and reevaluate our teaching of that. And I thought that when Compass Learning was put into place, it was used as an instructional tool opposed to measuring success for a test that, as a high-stakes test.
That's accurate. Compass Odyssey is more of a better curriculum than Study Island is in terms of what they're providing students. The benchmark assessments that are used in Study Island are recommended by PDE as one of the benchmark, along with I think Acuity is the other one they recommended for benchmark assessments that are closely aligned to their standards. So Study Island's one of their recommended ones from PDE.
And I didn't suggest removing it completely, but I didn't want to be spending X amount of dollars on this and X amount of dollars on this when this could do the same as that one. So that's why I'm saying we can fortunately purchase it in piecemeal. So if it's been a great asset at the middle level, I could just buy it for the middle level and I could buy it for pieces at the high school. So.
All right.
But we can certainly try to give you some more.
Thank you.
Now, you don't want that
That'd be
on.
fine,
Do you
yeah.
want that on the agenda?
Well,
or
I
you
was
just
going
want information?
I guess I can just.
Study
I
Island
could,
is really to help us with PSSA testing.
Right,
and
right,
making
I hear
sure
you.
that we have some type of form of
Just before we walk
evaluation.
away from Compass, I want to
Right.
make sure
And
I'd love
I didn't do
to,
it
we can have
with
that private
yeah.
discussion then.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
yep.
Great.
Wait, you know what? Next Friday.
Deal.
Okay?
All right.
Put it on our list.
Okay, thank
We
you.
are going to move on to public comment now. Again, we have 3 minutes for everybody if you're a resident of the district. If you're going to ask questions to the committee, please ask them all at once, and then we will respond after you ask your questions. We want to get out of here soon, but this is obviously important. And again, I know a lot of you here to talk about the Honors 2.0 framework idea and concept. At this point, it seems like we're going to not be moving in that direction, so
But if they can
we
do
understand.
better,
If you have any better
suggestions.
ideas, please suggest them. And I know Mr. Henkel has his department visions, which we'll be hearing about next meeting. But we can move on. Please state your name and address. at the podium, please. We're going to, just because I know I don't want to be calling on people.
Megan Weber, 65 Center Road, Douglasville, PA. As you know, I attend these meetings on a regular basis, and I was unable to attend the last one, and I listened to it. And during the meeting, I heard you refer to the Honors 2.0 packet, and I thought, where do I get it? And I know you've brought up tonight that you want to put that information out there, at least part of it. But as somebody who's listening on the thing, I think it would be great if you're going to hand it out, especially to the public as you did that evening, if we could also have it available somewhere on the website, maybe where the committee recordings are. There could be a committee document section would be my suggestion for you, not to bury something in the guidance. Yes, it could also be posted on guidance, but it could also be listed in the documents that we're using for the committee. You can have your own tab in the folder.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
So if we can do that.
If I remember it, I only used like a minute.
Oh, yeah, you have 2 minutes left.
Come back.
Yielding it back.
Kelly Jones, 315 Laurelwood Drive, Douglasville. First, I would like to say as a resident, I am happy to see some teachers out here who would like to talk about the curriculum. And I'm kind of shocked that this committee doesn't want to hear from them because, you know, this is something that they know more about than anyone when it comes to how to implement something. So that's a little shocking to me that you're not interested in hearing from them.
Thank you.
That being said, you know, when we're looking at the idea of combining courses, we do need to look at how it would impact the students. And I think education first, and I think that is what our primary goal should be, how to make sure that the students are going to get the best possible care. When we're looking at implementing this, if you were to implement something along those lines, I think you need to really look at the cost it would have to the district. The first thing that struck me, other than the things that Mrs. Horsham pointed out about dividing all your time, I mean that's going to be a significant impact against all levels of students. And we keep talking about both levels, the honors levels and the others. And I think you're forgetting that when these classes, you're going to have people from learning support to gifted IEPs. Currently, we do not have a very structured gifted program at the high school. Part of that gifted program deals with these honors courses. By taking that away as a separate honors course, you're going to be looking at litigation from gifted parents. When you're looking at learning support students, you're looking at people with ADD or ADHD. You put them in a room with, as I believe you said, 30 students, where a teacher is teaching one thing and these kids are supposed to concentrate on another. That is looking at students who are going to be unable to focus in that area. There are so many other things that I only have 3 minutes to talk about that it really scares me as someone in the district, what that could do and how that could impact our students. I love the idea of more AP classes. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that's something that we all would love to see pushed in there, and I think it's something we can do without having any kind of detriments in the other areas of our curriculum.
All right, great. Thank you.
Oh, the College Board recommends students start taking AP classes in 10th grade because of their mental capacity. So
okay, thank you. And do we have any feedback from the committee?
Only I didn't hear him say 30 in a class. If you're recommending that,
no,
we'll write it down.
The recording from last time.
The recording from last time, he said it.
Yeah, we discussed.
That was a slip of the tongue.
No, not necessarily. I mean, an idea. But anyway, we do want to hear from our students.
I gotta go.
Okay, but we do want to hear from our faculty, but again, we need to hear from the whole building as well, and I want to afford Mr. Hankel the respect for him to present to the committee. All right.
Amy Hicks, 109 Orchard Drive, Douglasville. I really appreciate the comments from administration tonight. Your educational expertise, I think, has really been helpful in such a decision-making process. Kelly, you brought up a couple things I wanted to say. Litigation came to mind right away when you're talking about mixing kids in a room. When you've got potentially litigious GIE parents of kids with a GIEP, and if their needs aren't being met under this current structure that you're proposing, you might be really opening up the door for some potential issues. One thing that I really also wanted to bring to everyone's attention, I brought this up numerous times. There seems to be this misconception in the district that honors means more volume. And that really is not the case for honors kids. It's not that you can put them in a room and just have this lesson, but the honors kids are going to do more. That's actually punitive. It's not more rigor, it's just more work. And what Mr. Henkel was talking about earlier was when you have an honors class, you're supposed to be meeting these kids at a higher level, not just giving them more work. And the current structure that you were talking about, the way you were talking about it, I don't think would work for those kids. It would simply be punitive, and that's not how we want to engage our students. And finally, the only other comment I had to make was regarding the block scheduling. I'm not for it, I'm not opposed to it, I don't really have a lot of information on it, but I want to caution you about taking advice from Facebook. You want to take your advice from people with a background in education. Not to say that their comments aren't valuable, but certainly let's look at educational background and people with knowledge to help guide our decisions. Okay?
Amy, let me...
Before you begin, are you finished with your comments?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
What I was saying was that there were people on there last night that spoke very positively about it, having been through it.
Right.
And that's all I'm
In
saying.
the 80s and when we went to school and
All I'm saying is I wanted to hear what they felt was positive about it. I don't know it, just like you're saying. I don't know enough about it. And I've heard very little to sell it. And I like the idea of this principal coming and making a presentation because she's experienced it.
she's got the expertise still.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's all I was saying was I wanted to talk to those people before we made any kind of decision. And even earlier, what Kelly said about not wanting to hear from the people. We actually do. But what we
And I got
didn't...
that tonight. I heard the word collaboration a whole lot.
Ms. Hicks, I'm sorry,
What
but
we didn't want was...
this is time for the committee to respond.
Yeah.
Ms. Bice is going to need to leave,
I
so
need
if
to
you're
go.
done with your
I'm
comments...
so sorry.
We got to go pick up the kids.
Yeah, if you're done with your comments...
And I'd really love to hear more of the comments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
could avoid the dialogue tonight. I'd be thrilled. It's their turn to speak.
Lori Hogue, 100 Penns Lane, Douglasville, and I am a parent. And I'm not going to get, because I love what Mrs. Hicks said, what Mrs. Jones said. I listened to your recording from last month, and I had 2 pages worth of notes to say, please do not get rid of honors classes. The point of honors is to help scaffold children to get to take those AP classes that you're trying to increase. My daughter had taken an honors class and thought, oh, I'll back off a little bit and I'll take an academic class. She was bored to tears, never should have done it, okay? Real quick about block scheduling. I am a proponent of block scheduling. I graduated from a school who did block scheduling. I loved block scheduling. There are benefits to block scheduling and increasing the hours longer. Can reduce those study halls that you're talking about. There's a lot of benefit for the student when it comes to block scheduling. When I moved here in the middle of my junior year, I had enough credits to graduate here in Pennsylvania. I had 36 credits compared to what you're asking for kids to graduate. It allowed me to have my educational profile be much more diverse because I was able to take a lot of different classes. As far as math was concerned, an issue that I had, I wasn't very good at algebra. You took algebra for a 90-minute course for the semester. And if you failed in that first semester, you retook it again. You did not lose, you did not fall behind, you did not waste a year. It also gave those kids who were more advanced the ability to move forward in that particular educational area and become more advanced and spread out in their educational profile. So I encourage you to please look at block scheduling. I think it would be a benefit to our students. I think that it would give them the opportunity to excel here at Danbury.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Schumacher. I live at 509 Pleasant View Drive in Douglasville. I do not teach in the district, but I am a teacher in the district that is currently under a modified block schedule and has combined study halls, and I wanted to give you some food for thought. We have study halls that have over 100 students in them, okay? The problem is the students who want to do work cannot do work. They're begging teachers to let them come into their classrooms during the teachers' prep periods to have a place to work and someone to talk to. getting rid of study halls and combining them, it's not a waste of a teacher's time being there for a study hall. I want our study halls back. I can capture my students during study hall, okay? Putting students together in combined study halls is detrimental to everyone because on top of them not being able to do anything, it creates accountability issues. The attendance issue. You can't account for that many students at one time. We have students who are cutting these block study halls, and in the township, I teach in Boyertown, by the way, and the township is now complaining because there are students out in the township during all hours of the school time. So please think long and hard about doing away with study halls and classrooms. Another thing is when I have a study hall in my classroom, I'm in my classroom. When those students don't need me, I can prep for what I need to do otherwise. But if you do combined study halls, you've got to pull teachers to another location to watch those students. That takes away time from what teachers need to do too, okay? You mentioned modified block. If you think about block, go full, don't go modified. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons. We went modified. To go modified, we had to lose 5 weeks of instruction time in our science classrooms because we went from a 6-day cycle where we saw them every day and 1 day of that cycle where we saw them in a double lab. Now I see my students 4 days a week, 1 double lab. I lost 1 period per cycle. I lost 5 weeks is what it amounted to of instructional time, okay? Modified blocks are tough. And what I'm hearing from the other teachers who are not used to teaching double courses is they don't know how to teach these kids for 80 minutes. So if you're going to go block, go full block and make sure your teachers have time to be ready to teach that segment of time. Otherwise, it's the students who are hurting, okay? So you need to look at it a lot. And I think some of your teachers mentioned it. A lot of what happened at Boyertown is we tried as teachers to talk to them. Teachers are the ones who are with the students every day. And I say to you as board members, talk to the teachers. They'll give you more information of what works for those students than anybody else can. And no offense, Mr. Henkel, but admin sometimes pushes things through and you forget about the people who are with those students every day, who know how to capture those students, how to teach those students, how to make it work for them. And I really think as board members, you need to spend more time talking to the teachers in the district. It's really important. And one last thought I want to leave you with. You talked about combining your honors and your academic, and I don't know if you're talking about getting rid of your general and thinking about combining with the academic. I'm telling you now it's a mistake. We've been doing it for 3 years. I'm teaching students who used to be in general who are now in some of my academic classes, and I teach all levels. I'm losing my academics.
Okay.
On top of that, I have problems with the IP issues which they brought up, because these parents with the IPs want and demand that I do so many things for their students that I have to accommodate that I can't meet the needs of my academic students who I could possibly raise up to the honors and AP level the next year because I can't challenge them enough. And one teacher can't teach at 2 or 3 levels in one classroom. You lose students. Okay?
Thank you.
Mrs. Porter, real quick, for Mrs. Byte's time constraints, could you try to arrange with Boyertown that you and I visit Boyertown to look at their block scheduling and look at their study halls?
Sure.
I'd like to see it.
Absolutely.
I remember, she reminded me. We're talking about having better communication between the teachers and the board, and I think that as the administrative team and the board and the teachers need to find the right way for everybody. You know, Mr. Henkel doesn't want us running to you with issues that we have. He wants to know about them. And the same is true that we as a staff want to know what your concerns are. So I think that that's something that's a challenge for all of us, is to find the appropriate times to communicate. Yes, I'm here and I can speak because I live in the district. And I tell, when I come up to speak, I normally tell you whether I'm speaking as a resident and a mom, or whether, you know, I try not to speak as a teacher because I'm one person out of hundreds. So I think that's something that we need great communication, and I've already seen an improvement in it. But I think we need to make sure that we have some format, some organization, something, so that they're not getting blindsided by things that you know about that we think are great ideas, that everything is out there, but yet the right process in place. And again, I don't want to bog us down in, you know, the process, but there's got to be something there to get everybody on the right page at the same time. So just thinking about it. I think that's something we can all consider.
I'm glad to hear that communication is improving at least a little bit compared to how it was before, and we're going to hopefully continue to make strides.
Very quickly, I just want to mention, going along with that, I'm not a voting member of the community, but the English department chair, we spent a great deal of time talking about English programming. here, but
Yeah, I mean, again,
He didn't identify.
I know. Can you please, Mrs. Bites, can you please
Can you
identify
identify
yourself for the sake
for
of the
the
minutes? She
tape?
asked.
my name is Matt Palmer. I'm the English department.
Great,
here
thank
at
you.
Thank you.
Again, we go through Mr. Hankel, who represents the entire building, and he speaks for his building. That's how it works. But
I would agree.
Yeah, does a good job with that.
okay, thank you.
I'm not saying doesn't.
Let me very quickly address what Megan said then. If one of you were to, if a teacher were to talk to a board member with any idea or problem, we would go to the administration to discuss the problem, and we could do it anonymously. I mean, we don't need to have a name, but at the same time, we wouldn't act on what you were telling us without talking to the administration first.
And I don't want to create the dialogue, but I was at the conundrum with the last meeting that I normally attend. I knew you gave the paperwork out, but do I send you an email and say, hey, can I have the Honors 2.0 framework? Because I'm very curious and very interested and want to be prepared to speak. But I think, do I send that from my personal email? I don't want to send it from my work email. But
We'll work on that. We'll work. Communication is on our top priority, so we'll be working on that later. Okay.
All right. Great.
My name is Alexis Schumach. I live at 509 Pleasant View Drive in Douglasville. I'm currently a junior at Daniel Boone High School. You were talking about combining the academic and honors classes. I can list numerous reasons why that's a bad idea. Please take the time to consider just a few reasons. Well, first off, they're separate levels for a reason. They're formatted in a different way, and the pacing is different, the content. I mean, yes, in some classes you do go over the same content, but like honors history, honors English, there's more writing. You're taught how to be a better writer. Until I got into honors English, and it was also because my brother told me, I didn't even know how to format a proper MLA heading. So there's that. And on the topic, well, I already mentioned this. The honors classes are more quickly paced. The curriculum's formatted differently. If you combine these, I mean, it won't be suited to the needs of the students anymore. The academic and honors, the honors kids, they'll be bored because the pacing is too slow and their curriculum won't be as in-depth as it should be for them. The academic students will be lost because it might be a bit too fast for them. Aside from that, aside from it being inadequate for the students, think about how stressful it would be for the teachers. You'd have to modify several different tests, like my mom does. Modified tests, they'd have to grade all of those tests, there'd be all those extra students, and on top of that, Keystone prep. They still have to prep for the Keystones on top of all of that. But aside from those two, there are some consequences that need to be taken into consideration. For example, what if a student wants to apply to Harvard or Columbia? All the colleges will see are those academic labels. They won't know that the school doesn't offer those separate honors courses. They'll just assume that the student elected to take those courses. By doing this, it'll put the student's future in jeopardy. And also, in addition to putting a student's future in jeopardy, the district's future will be put in jeopardy. If this is done, the word will get out that the district does not provide a full educational experience for a student. First off, numerous transfers will occur, I guarantee that. Numerous students will transfer out of the district, and then people won't be willing to move into the district when they hear of this. Property values will go down, along with the quality of the district. As a result, this domino effect will ultimately result in the destruction of the district. So, while it's understandable, because clearly this is being proposed because of the budgetal issues with the debt, this isn't the answer. This is a school, and the school should put what's in the best interest of the students first. Keep the class structure the way it is.
Ms. Schumach, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I would like to respond that part of the proposal, which we didn't discuss tonight, was also to using this idea of a framework, and I don't know if it's worth even discussing now, but even in the business department, perhaps we have accounting courses now, but if there was a way to turn them into honors courses, and it'll be neat to investigate as well.
And I would like to say how thrilled I am that our junior is so articulate and so well prepared to make a public presentation
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, thank you again. All right.
Sorry, can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Adam Banks, 348 Gary Road, Douglas, PA. Talking about AP classes, I'm an AP student. I took 2 last year. I'm in 3 this year. My mom can attest for the nights I've spent locked in my room in the fetal position, trying to figure out when I'll get all my work done. The impression I'm getting, I understand that it's academic, the honors project and the AP. Really, what that says to me, and I know that's going to say to all my AP friends, is you're either taking an academic class or you're taking an AP class. Which also says to me, as you're talking about getting into college and stuff like that, well, I'm trying to take the hardest course load I can. I'm trying to be prepared for college. So that almost says to me that me being an honor student, an AP student, I'm going to be forced to fill my schedule with AP classes. And 3 right now, that's a lot, handling everything else. Then on top of that, to get into college, like you were saying, I need extracurriculars. I need band, chorus, sports 3 seasons out of the year, student government, drama club, newspaper, all that. I mean, that's asking a lot out of students to cut their legs off from under them if they're AP students, and academic students too. I mean, kids choose their path, I think, in high school, and the kids that want to be honor students that are in academic now. I mean, I can't see much incentive to do the project for them if they're thinking about it. I mean, the honors class, you get the 5-point bump and everything, but they're not going to make that jump from academic to AP. So I mean, realistically, the whole thing, I mean, it doesn't, coming from a student's point of view, I don't think it makes sense. I mean, that's you're either overloading it or you're not getting enough. There's not really a balance that you can get there. So.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
I'll make this quick. Laurel Reno, 367 Buckhead Lane. The whole combining of honors and academic. I have a child who's an academic student taking an honors class. Kind of intimidated because maybe not at the same level as some of the other honors classes. When I asked my child, what if you were in biology and it was a mixed academic and honors? I would never raise my hand. I would look like an idiot in front of my friends, my peers. So not only would the honor students maybe not get the in-depth discussion that they would need, you would lose your academic kids because they could be intimidated by not necessarily understanding maybe some of the higher level concepts that are being taught. I don't agree with combining those. I love Mr. Henkel's idea of an a la carte courses, which could take care of your study hall issues if we're even possibly offering a rotating a la carte. These are offered every fall, these are offered in the spring, offering greater variety to maybe pull in those kids that aren't your math, science, English. I think of video games, and I think, how about an intro to video gaming programming that we just offer an intro? You're going to get those kids that would be sitting in a study hall in there. You'd probably be able to do an entire day of classes like that. I love that idea, and I think that's where we should focus our resources, is into providing that so we can pull up the students that struggle to make them better students and increase the overall educational experience.
Thank you. Is that it? All right. It looks like we do not have any more public comment. So thank you all for coming. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Drive safely. The meeting is adjourned at 8:12 p.m.